Will you see if they're in the hallway? All rise. 52nd District Court, 3rd Division is now in session. The Honorable Julie A. Nicholson is presiding.
Please be seated. Are we all set? I'll have them bring the defendants up.
Yes, sir.
All set? Amy, are they going to be able to get, you're going to take them through this one?
I got a pedal cruise one. I don't I do.
May have to move over for a little bit just for them to get through. I don't know if there's enough room in the front there.
There's not a lot of
Yeah, I know.
Judge, did you want defendants to go in front of our table or behind?
No, just coming through the front, just
Okay.
as long as there's enough room there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to let you know that all of those students have would really rough about telling mom and dad about going to the afternoon, about telling mom and dad. They were all off the phone. So this is like,
What phone number do you?
they were deleted from what was on the phone. So I think they must have been recovered to the second have. I just want you to know this was pulled out of what was on the phone. It's down with all the texts of that high. And if you look at it, what prints really comes off the phone is, so we have 317, 317, and then yep, so then it goes 317, 4, 5, 21. Right, all of the texts that are here do not, you have more text than what's here. Well, we haven't, there are, no, we had not seen them before today, but I know there's multiple ways to access it as well, but you access it in a way that you pull the stuff that is not a physical phone, unless you're ready to do it.
Yeah, sure, but that's easy to sell. You got it for me, I mean, it's like that.
Yeah, my point is that I just want to make you aware that there are some of the texts you have that were deleted before long get to those.
Yeah, that's a.
That's a question for Wendy.
I didn't understand that our version we have not actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that's
Okay, calling, People versus James and Jennifer Crumbley, docket numbers 21006-651 and 21006-652. Can I have appearances on the record, please, starting with the prosecuting attorney?
Good morning, Your Honor. Karen McDonald on behalf of the people.
Thank you, Judge. Mark Keith on behalf of people.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm Shannon Smith on behalf of Jennifer Crumbley. For the purpose of the exam and today, I am going to represent Ms. Crumbly, and my partner is going to represent Mr. Crumbly so that we can keep our arguments clean and separate.
Good morning, Your Honor. Marital on behalf of James Crumbly.
So just for clarification, in terms of any cross-examination and direct examination, Ms. Smith, you will be taking cross-examination and direct examination for Ms. Crumbly only, and Ms. Linda will be doing it for Mr. Crumbly.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay.
Judge, if I may, just regarding that aspect, we have discussed potential conflicts every hearing. I do believe that is appropriate for defendants, as well as defense counsel, to acknowledge a potential conflict and place that waiver on the record if there is.
I have made the record of that at each appearance, and I'm planning on doing it today as well. Again, as both of you have been aware, and I've made both of you aware of the fact there's potential for a conflict of interest in this case due to the fact that your attorneys are representing you, and they are attorneys and counsel in the same firm. Ms. Crumbly, do you understand any potential conflict that might exist with both of these attorneys representing both you and your husband?
Yes.
And Mr. Crumbly?
Yes.
Ms. Crumbly, knowing that potential conflict, are you willing to waive any conflict that may exist and proceed today with Ms. Smith representing you here for purposes of the preliminary examination?
Yes.
Mr. Crumbly, what about you? Are you willing to waive any potential conflicts that exist with having Ms. Lehman representing you, knowing that Ms. Smith is representing your wife?
Yes.
All right, before we move forward, we've got a couple of motions that were filed. For the record, today is the date and time set for the preliminary examination in this case. The attorneys have had the opportunity to meet with each other regarding some of the exhibits. Is there still the necessity to address that motion?
The motion to adjourn, Your Honor?
The motion to adjourn and the basis for the reason for the adjournment.
Yes, there is. And Ms. Lehman is going to argue that motion.
Good morning, Your Honor. The defense did file a motion for a more compressed witness list and to adjourn. We have reviewed the discovery that we received from the prosecution at the time. Your Honor, may I remove my mask?
You can take it as long as everybody's comfortable with it.
Thank you, Your Honor. At the time of filing our motion, there were a number of materials that we had not received from the prosecution. Since filing the motion, the prosecution has elected to provide additional discovery to us on February 1st, February 2nd, February 3rd, and February 4th. We did again ask the prosecution to provide us with a more specific witness list. The original witness list that was provided was approximately 30 witnesses. We asked for a shorter witness list. The prosecution provided us with a list of 16 witnesses. We did ask them for more specifics regarding their witnesses so that we could better focus our attention on preparing with our clients and also preparing ourselves for the preliminary examination today. In reviewing the materials that were provided on February, I believe, 2nd and February 4th, we learned that there were some materials that had not been provided by the prosecution to us, specifically regarding one of the witnesses that they expect to take the longest today, and that's Detective Wobrowski. We have met with the prosecution. The prosecution indicates that sounds that they do have the materials that have not been provided to us, but they have not provided them. It's been, Your Honor, we have not been able to review their report specifically created by the detective, video specifically created by the detective. It's our understanding that those reports may or may not be used today, but that doesn't mean that they don't contain information that could be relevant to the defense. And Your Honor, in the amount of discovery that has been provided to us by the prosecution so far, there are at least 67 hours of recordings. As we've made the court aware, in order to have in-person visits with our clients, we have to obtain a court order for each visit. We have to obtain a negative PCR COVID test at least 72 hours before the visit, or I'm sorry, no more than 72 hours before the visit. And we have to schedule the in-person visit with our clients. We were able to successfully schedule 2 visits with our clients last week. However, we have not been able to review all of the recorded discovery, even all of the recorded discovery specific to some of the witnesses today, because there were other materials and matters that we needed to discuss. If we do want to visit with our clients, Your Honor, as I'm sure the court is aware, if we don't do it in person, it's done through a software, which quite frankly, Your Honor, has failed us more times than it hasn't. And we're also limited in time on those visits. We're limited to half an hour at a time, and we can't schedule multiple visits back to back. So, Your Honor, it's obviously been very difficult to prepare for this examination with the amount of discovery that the prosecution has provided. And the amount that the prosecution has provided that's relevant to our clients is also varied within the amount of discovery that they've provided to us. So, Your Honor, even though we've taken a number of steps to effectively prepare for our preliminary exam today, we do still have concerns that there are things that we are missing. We just had a conversation about text messages that we haven't seen, Your Honor. So the prosecution has indicated that they may have an explanation for why we haven't seen them, but we do still have concerns, Judge. And today even, the prosecution indicated that their list is even shorter than the 16 that they provided to us as recently as last Friday. So, Judge, the police reports that we reviewed indicate that there are dates with which law enforcement has provided over 100 gigabytes of data to the probably over 200 gigabytes of data to the prosecutor's office, and we've received that data sometimes weeks later. So, Judge, we do have concerns about the material that's been provided to us. We do have concerns that we're missing material that will be relevant to the preliminary examination. And we can't be effective without being able to review everything, Judge. So we are asking that the court adjourn the preliminary examination for these reasons.
Response?
Thank you, Judge. We just spent 45 minutes meeting with defense counsel. Defense counsel indicated that everything in this binder that we put together for the court as well as defense has been turned over. Now, just a few minutes ago, Ms. Smith approached me and said there was a text thread that she didn't think she had or may have been deleted. Our expert in computer crimes is going to testify regarding how a user may or may not delete things and how it can be exported from the Cellbrite system. That's not new information, Judge. We have turned over everything in an unprecedented fashion. By way of example, when we received the search warrant returns from social media outlets such as Instagram and Facebook on February the 1st, our paralegal, who's been dedicated to this case since November the 30th, every day she's worked on just this case. She's gathering discovery, she's compiling it, she's cataloging it, she's redacting it when necessary. She turned that around in one day. So the statement that this is some sort of strategy, quite frankly, Judge, just misses the mark here. We are following the rules, we're following court rules, we're following all rules of discovery. We are ready to proceed today. The information that counsel just referenced regarding Detective Rogowski, that's something called call detail records. We've already indicated we're not going to admit that at the exam. And those call detail records have been turned over to defense. Now, Judge, we have turned over everything that we possibly could have. We are ready to proceed today. And like I said, the prosecution has been following all those court's orders.
Thank you. All right, the defendants did file an emergency motion to compel witness list or in the alternative to adjourn the preliminary examination on February 2nd, 2022. The court has had the opportunity to review the motion, the response. Also did have a discussion with both attorneys relative to the nature of the discovery that had been turned over and what had not been turned over and or they believed had not been turned over. The court did allow both all attorneys to meet prior to beginning today's hearing for approximately 45 minutes to go over all that discovery. In addition, the court adjourned this preliminary examination for approximately 6 weeks because it did acknowledge and understand that the discovery in this case would most likely be voluminous. Having taken all those measures, the court finds that there's sufficient evidence that has been turned over to the defense attorneys at this point in time, that their good cause does not exist to adjourn the exam again. If there's a good likelihood that this exam will not complete today and that it may need to go into another date and time. So having taken all those factors into consideration, the court is going to deny the motion. The prosecutor also had a motion.
Thank you, Judge. The people filed the motion as well as to restrict communications between the defendants during court. It became known to us that during certain Zoom breakout sessions, the defendants were making certain gestures to each other. We're asking this court, through this court's inherent authority, to restrict the communication, Judge. I did file a plea, and I believe it speaks for itself. I do not believe there's objection from the defense.
Defense.
Your Honor, the fact that the prosecution wasn't even aware of the communications until they were later told by other people shows that our clients weren't trying to do anything to disrupt the court. All of the communication, they didn't realize it was being broadcasted. They certainly didn't intend to hurt any of the victims from Oxford. On that, we apologize to the court. I already told the prosecution I would tell our clients not to have communications at the table or send messages of I love you at the table. They agreed. There was no reason to file a motion. Our clients will behave. They're not going to do anything like that, and they certainly don't mean to offend anyone.
Thank you. The court has had the opportunity to review and consider the motion that was filed by the prosecutor as well as the oral arguments. I'm going to grant the motion as it relates to in-court proceedings. Mr. and Mrs. Crumbly, this is a court proceeding. During the course of any breaks or while maybe I'm looking away or somebody else is looking away, you're not to have communication with each other. It's disruptive and it is disrespectful. Okay? All right, are we ready to begin?
Yeah, Your Honor.
May I address the conflict issue for one brief second?
Sure.
I just wanted to add one additional factor. I don't believe it's ever been placed on the record by the defense that they understand that they're not similarly situated. They have the same charges, but the evidence will be different against one than it is against the other. I think it's important to note and important for the defendants to understand and waive a conflict in that regard as well.
Any response from the defense counsel?
Your Honor, we acknowledge that the cases are different for Mr. Crumbly versus Mrs. Crumbly, and it's part of the reason to make it easy for this court. I'm going to represent Jennifer Crumbley, and Ms. Lincoln is going to represent James for the purpose of this hearing. I don't think this is a concern the prosecution needs to be raising. We're very aware of the, at least, evidence that we believe will be.
And I'll just confirm with the defendants again. Mr. and Mrs. Crumbly, starting with Mrs. Crumbly, do you understand that there's potential that you have different interests and you are not necessarily on even par with each other in terms of what your issues may be, which again could lead to a potential conflict of interest. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And knowing that, do you still want to proceed today with these attorneys?
Yes.
Mr. Crumbly, do you understand that?
Yes.
And do you still want to proceed today with these attorneys?
Yes.
I'm going to go ahead and proceed. Go ahead and call your first witness.
Your Honor, I'm sorry. We do have two very quick preliminary matters. First, we'd ask the court to have a sequestration order and make that even more explicit only because there are witnesses who can view the court proceedings from outside of the courtroom with the live streaming. So we would ask that every witness be instructed they're not to view the other witnesses and for sequestration.
Okay, that's a good point. Do they have phones on them? The witnesses are, to my knowledge, all the witnesses have been sequestered. The only witnesses that may be in the courtroom is the first witness. Is that correct?
I believe.
I'm going to take a minute and have the prosecutor and the deputy advise the other witnesses that they are not to view anything on their phones. Their phones should be off. Policy from the Supreme Court is that if they're in the common areas of the courthouse, they can have their phones, they can have them on. In the courtroom, you cannot. So I am going to direct that they turn their phones off until after they leave the courthouse.
And then, Your Honor, just another issue which doesn't have anything to do with prosecution. In light of some of the new information that we've been given this morning, myself and my co-counsel need to communicate with our clients by writing notes. My client cannot write with the belly chains. Can she please have a hand-free and Mr. Crumbly have a hand-free so that they can write back and forth to us? It will allow us to be able to communicate with them without having to disrupt the proceedings and stop them. Because we did receive some different information than what we've received prior to today's hearing.
Okay, I'm going to defer to the sheriff's department. Any issues with that?
Your Honor, due to their max status, I don't feel comfortable in moving their maximum house.
I'm sorry,
Because of their status, their maximum security status, I don't feel comfortable removing the cuffs from their hands.
okay, the problem is, I'm just trying to figure out how we can, she hold the pad on her lap. And I will give you a moment in between if you need to confer with them, okay?
All right, it might take us several moments
Yeah,
as we go through the exhibit,
Yes,
so.
you just have everything on your, keep the legal pad on your lap. And if you can, I know I don't have anything that the table doesn't go over, so it doesn't give you an opportunity to kind of slide underneath there.
Your Honor, is it possible, and I guess this would be a question for the deputies, is it possible just to handcuff them without the belly chains, that way they're still cuffed?
No, that wouldn't be possible, Your Honor. They need to remain in what they're brought in.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
They need to remain in what they're brought
In the
up.
belly chain?
Yes.
Okay. All right, first witness?
Your Honor, the prosecution calls Kira Pennick to the stand.
Okay, ma'am, if you'll please raise your right hand for me. Do you solemnly swear any testimony you're going to give will be the truth under the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, if you'll have a seat. I'm just gonna go over a couple of things with you real quickly. And you can have it scoot up as close to those microphones as you can. If at any time, you feel comfortable enough and you're wanting to remove your mask, you can do so. I also am going to ask you to keep your voice up so that we can all hear you and speak clearly, and make sure you are verbalizing all responses. Don't shake your head or say uh-huh or because the court recorder can't record that, okay?
Okay.
Okay, can you please state your full name for the record and spell both your first and last name?
My name is Kira Pennock, Kira Pennock.
Thank you. Go ahead, counsel.
Kira, you may also remove your jacket if you're more comfortable.
Okay.
Yes. It's cold in here, but I don't think it's cold.
All right, Kira, can you tell the court how old you are?
I am 25.
And can you tell the court what your occupation is?
I run a horse farm. I give lessons and board horses.
And do you own the farm?
I do.
Okay, and can you tell the judge what that entails?
We have some boarded horses, so people pay us to take care of their horses. We feed the horses, we water them, we turn them outside, and then we also offer training services where we put training on horses or give riders lessons.
So how does the business generate income?
The boarding side of the business covers, the expenses of, the feed and water, the necessities for the horses, and then it also covers the care. So we have some workers that help to keep the business going because we have a lot of horses.
Okay, without giving the specific address, what town or township or city is the farm located in?
Metamora.
Okay. And Kira, do you know Jennifer and James Crumbley?
I do.
Do you see them in the courtroom here today?
Yes.
Could you point to Jennifer Crumbley or tell me something she's wearing?
She is right here in the front. She is wearing a mask and glasses.
Okay. Judge had asked that the court take notice that the witness is identified Jennifer Crumbley.
No objection, so noted.
And do you see James Crumbley in the courtroom here today?
I do.
And can you tell us what he's wearing?
He is on the far end and he is wearing orange. He has a mask on and glasses.
All right. Judge, can you take notice that she's properly identified James
Any
Crumbley?
objection?
No objection, Your
So
Honor.
noted.
Kira, who do you know better, James or Jennifer?
Jennifer.
And when did you meet her?
I met her a few years ago, and I met her through the horse world. She had a horse at the time.
All right, when you say a few years ago, we need to know if all possible, what year was that?
I do not recall the exact year.
Was it more than 3 years ago?
I do not believe so.
Okay. When you met her, did you own your business at the time?
No, I did not.
So how did you meet her?
I have some friends that were familiar with the barn that she had her horse going to.
Okay, at the time, did she have one horse or two?
One,
And what was the name of the horse?
Shorty.
Okay. And currently, how many horses did the Crumbleys or do the Crumbleys own?
They have two.
Okay. And at some point, another horse was purchased?
Yes, the second horse was purchased earlier in 21.
Okay. And what's the second horse's name?
Billy.
And do you know how that purchase was made and in what circumstance?
That was an online purchase. She had the horse shipped to Michigan.
And did she tell you why or how that happened?
She was looking for a new horse that she could do some jumping on, as Shorty had an injury where he could not be jumping. So she happened to find this horse online, and she purchased him to
Did
be
she
shipped up here.
did she tell you how that occurred?
She was drinking that night and said that she made a purchase.
Okay. How do you know she was drinking?
She had told me.
What exactly did she say? Did she say she was intoxicated or she'd been drinking?
She said that she was drinking.
Okay. And did she tell you how much the horse cost?
She said the horse cost $5,000.
All right. And you're telling your testimony is that happened in 2021
Yes.
of what month approximately? Was it after you owned the business?
No, this was at a different boarding facility.
Okay. So do you know about what month it was purchased?
The horse ended up showing up in February.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly when the actual purchase happened though.
Okay. At some point, both of the horses were boarded with you, correct?
Yes.
And when did that occur?
Both horses ended up becoming boarded with me in June to the July time period of 21.
Okay. And can you tell me what services, if any, have you offered James and Jennifer Crumbley with regard to your business?
We have boarded their horses, so we take care of them, and then we were also giving lessons to both of them and putting training on their horses.
Okay, so how much per horse does it cost to board and feed per month?
The board price for the pasture board that they were on is $400 a month.
$400 per month per horse.
Yes.
Okay, and then in addition, you said that you were giving lessons.
Yes.
Who were you giving lessons to?
I was giving lessons to both Jennifer and James, but then ended up more so just giving lessons to Jennifer, as I don't specialize in the Western riding.
Okay, and your testimony is you opened your business in June. So how many lessons approximately per week was the goal for Jennifer?
The goal was about 3 lessons a week.
Okay, how long are those lessons, Kira?
About 45 minutes to an hour.
And how much do they cost?
They cost $35.
Okay. And then did James also have lessons every week?
No, he did not take lessons every single week, but he would take lessons on occasion.
Okay. About how much time, let's just narrow it down from June until November, how many days a week would you see the Crumbleys?
I would say they would be out there about 3 to 4 days a week.
3 to 4 days a week, just during the week or on the weekend as well?
Both week and weekend. Usually I would only see them 1 day on the weekend.
And for about, when they came to the barn, what did they do? And how long did it take?
They would groom their horses and tack them up and ride them, and then cool them down and put them away.
Okay.
And that usually took about 3 hours.
Okay. Did either one of them have jobs at that time?
Yes.
Do you know what they did?
I do not know exactly what job they had.
Do you know what their hours were?
I do not.
About what time did they arrive during the day?
They would usually come around 5 o'clock on the weekdays, and then weekends they would usually come around like between 9 and 11 in the morning.
Did they, for the most part, come together?
Yes.
Okay. Did their son ever come with them?
I have not seen their son at my farm.
Okay, and that would be since June.
Yes.
Have you ever seen him?
I have seen him maybe once or twice.
And that would be at the previous barn?
Yes.
Okay. So you're saying it was 3 to 4 times a week, probably around 5 o'clock, about 3 hours?
Yes.
Okay. Did the horses ever require any care other than just boarding and feeding and grooming?
Yes. Sometimes we've had to put like ointments or take care of them if they injured themselves or need some type of vet care.
Okay,
and, along with holding them for the farrier.
Okay,
to do their
for,
feet.
for those of us in the world that aren't exactly sure what a farrier is, can you tell the court what that is?
Basically, a person that does a pedicure for a horse. They can put shoes on a horse, and they just make sure that the horse stays sound enough for either riding or pasture, even if a horse can't be ridden. And it's a regular service that needs to be done.
How often does it need to be done?
Every 6 to 8 weeks.
And did the Crumbleys provide that to their horses?
Yes.
Okay. The farrier would go to the barn?
Yes.
Okay, about how much does it cost every time the farrier visits each horse?
For their horses, it was about $130 each horse.
Okay. And then if the horse needed assistance because it was injured or sick, whose responsibility is it to get veterinary care?
It is the owner's responsibility to pay for the care from the vet, and also most of the, like if it's very involved care, they should be the ones doing it, but we do offer the services of, you know, putting ointment on a horse's wounds as just.
And so for the most part, did James and Jennifer make sure that was done?
I would say so, yes.
Okay. I asked you before if you'd ever seen their son since you started your business, and you said,
I have not seen him more than maybe once or twice.
okay. Do you know why he didn't come to the barn with his parents for 3 hours, 3 to 4 times a week?
I was told that he didn't really want anything to do with the horses.
Who told you that?
Jen did.
Okay. Would you consider Jennifer a friend?
I would.
Okay. And at some point, did you ever become aware of any marital issues?
She has mentioned some things in the past.
Like what? Like what?
She had mentioned,
I would
Hold on a
object this
second.
for relevance.
Your Honor, according to MRE 401 and People v. Mills, which is a Michigan Supreme Court in 1995 case, evidence is relevant if it's material or probative. At issue here is defendant's duty to protect the community from intentionally harming someone by willful disregarding of clear signs of danger. What they did, what they didn't do, how they spent their time, what they exposed their son to, all is probative and material, and I believe it is relevant, Your Honor.
The court is going to overrule the objection. Go ahead.
she had mentioned that she had found some information of, she thought that James was cheating on her, looking up singles in the area online, but then Ethan had.
Hold on one moment.
Yeah.
Do you know approximately when that was? Did she tell you that?
I do not recall exactly.
Was it since
when.
June?
Yes.
Was it warm outside or cold outside?
It was warm outside.
Okay, so summer of 2021.
I would say so, yes.
Okay, and what was her reaction to that?
She was very upset.
And did she tell you what she did as a result of it?
She confronted James about it, and James had said that he didn't do that. And then Ethan had come forward and said that he was the one that was looking these up online.
Okay, so did she tell you that then Ethan was aware of this accusation of dad cheating?
I do not recall if she said that he knew about it.
Okay, what was your general impression of Jennifer?
I did not have any issues with her.
How would you
liked-
describe her?
I really liked how dedicated she was to the horses, and she had aspirations of doing some competitions in the summer during show season. And she had always treated me and everybody else with respect at the barn.
Okay, and did she talk about her son very much?
Not a whole lot.
Did she ever talk about anything positive about her son?
I don't recall her outright saying anything super positive. She really just didn't talk a whole lot about him.
Did she ever express anything concerning about her son?
Yes.
What did she say?
She said that he did not have any friends, that he only had one friend, and he spent a lot of time online or playing games. But he just seemed to keep to himself.
Did she have a word to describe that?
Not really. She thought that it was weird that he wasn't out doing things like a normal kid.
Did she call him weird?
What did you say?
Did she call him weird?
Yes.
Okay. And was there a time, do you remember the time frame she told you that he didn't have any friends?
I do not remember the time.
Okay. Did she consider him a normal?
No.
How do you know?
Just how she really didn't talk a lot about him, and when she would talk about it was just, oh, he doesn't do normal kid things.
Okay. Did you have any contact with Jennifer or James on November 30th?
Yes.
Of 2021? Okay. Did either one of them, to your knowledge, go to the barn on that day?
James had gone that morning to put some ointment on Billy's legs.
What was wrong with Billy's legs?
Billy has something called mud fever or scratches. It's a fungus that sometimes will grow on a horse's legs, and it causes scabs, and it's pretty painful.
And did the Crumbly seem concerned about Billy's legs?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you know James was there? Did you see him?
I did not see him, but some of the other people at my farm saw him there.
Okay. Did you have a conversation at all, either on the phone or via text, with Jennifer?
About
Anything on that day?
yes.
Okay. And when you say James was there, was he there in the early morning, in the afternoon? Do you have any idea what time it was?
I do not know exactly when. I just know that it was in the morning.
Because you saw that the salve was on Billy's legs?
Yes.
And what time did you notice that?
That was probably around noon.
Okay. So did you ever see Jennifer that day?
I did not.
Okay. But you spoke, what did you do, text her or call her?
Facebook Messenger.
Okay. And did you often communicate with her through Facebook Messenger?
Yes.
Is that something you use normally? Is there a reason why versus text?
It seems to be a lot easier for people to just message through Facebook.
Okay.
I'm not totally sure why. I don't really use
Okay,
my phone
that's okay.
myself.
All right, Your Honor, may I approach? Okay, Kira, I'm approaching with an exhibit, People's Proposed 6 exhibit. There's approximately 28 pages.
Yes.
And can you tell the court what that is?
These are the messages that morning of November 30th.
And who are they messages between?
Between myself and Jennifer.
And it's Facebook Messenger?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell the court when the messages start and when they end?
The messages start at 10:18 a.m. on November 30th. And the messages end, I am not totally sure date-wise of when they end here. There is no date on these, but I know that.
Okay, if you
there's
can take a look at the last couple pages, the last date that you see.
It just says Thursday as the last one that I can see.
Okay, and where did you, I'm giving those to you, but where did those come from? Do you know?
These messages, they came from my phone.
Okay, and how did they get to the sheriff's department?
I had sent screenshots of my messages.
Because they asked you to, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did Jennifer have a lesson planned that Tuesday, November 30th?
Yes, she did.
And what time was it supposed to be?
Well, initially it was supposed to be around like 4:30, and then we had to push it because she said that she couldn't make it
Okay,
out.
we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So aside from the lesson, there was also a big concern about Billy's legs and what did you call it, mud fever?
Yes.
Okay. Would you rate the concern of the Crumbleys pretty high about mud fever? Is that something really serious that a horse can get?
It is not super serious, but it's definitely something that needs to be taken care of. But with Billy's legs, it was just unusual for his legs to swell up. They became swollen, and it was all 4 legs when the mud fever was only on 2 of them. So that was a little concerning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your Honor, I move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 6. I believe defense counsel's had a chance to look it over and does not have an objection.
No objection, Judge.
All right, may I publish to, yes, sorry. May I publish to the monitor or my assistant, Mr. Keith? Okay, Kira, can you see the monitor?
Yes.
Okay, and can you read, are your comments in black or are they in blue?
My comments are in blue.
Okay, so it says November 30th at 10:18. Can you read that first text message that you sent that day?
Boys are needing supplements for tonight, and Shorty lost to Bell Boot again.
Okay, and then at 10:58, there was a response from Jennifer, and can you read what she responded?
Okay, I'll bring some out later. Just had to go to my son's school and meet his counselor. Shit day.
Did you know what that was about?
I did not know then what that was about.
Okay, and what did you, based on her describing it as shit day, what was your impression?
That something probably happened, that, her son was having problems at school.
Has she ever told you in the past that she's gone to her son's school?
She has mentioned that she has gone to the school, but I don't recall when.
Okay. What did you respond at 11:13, Kira?
I responded with, "Oh man, everything okay? Do you still want to do a lesson tonight?"
And her response?
"Yeah, I still plan on doing the lesson. Everything's okay. He's just having a hard time after losing Tank, his friend going away to a treatment facility, and who knows what else, but he was caught drawing this on a math assignment today."
Okay, who's Tank? Do you know?
Tank was their dog.
Okay. And did you know about the loss of the dog recently and the friend leaving, the one friend he had leaving?
Yes.
Okay. And then she texts you a picture of looks like a math worksheet, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you look at it closely then?
I looked at it after I happened to open it and see it that day.
And what was your response to that?
Well, my response,
Wait, I didn't ask that well. What was personally your response to it? What did you think?
I was alarmed. I thought that was not normal for.
What was alarming to you about it?
All of the violence all over the page. It just didn't really seem like something that a kid would do on a test in school.
Okay, were you aware that the Crumbleys owned guns?
Yes.
Were you aware that they purchased a gun for their son?
I did not know the gun was for their son.
Do you follow her on social media?
I do.
Did you view a post about taking her son to Mother's Sunday and a early Christmas present? Did you see that post?
I had seen it, but I'm not sure exactly when. I don't really spend a lot of time on social media.
Okay, me neither. Okay, so you said you were 24, correct?
25.
25, I'm sorry. And you're not a parent,
No.
but you were really alarmed about that?
Yes.
Okay. And what happened after she texted you? What was the next text that came through?
The next text was, as long as I can get out there early enough.
So this is from Jennifer.
Yes.
Okay. Can you speak up just a little bit and read that text?
Yeah. As long as I can get out there early enough because I had to leave work for an hour and I have a meeting in Southfield at 3 o'clock, but I should be done with that by 4. I plan being there, plus the vet said it's better for him to move around and keep it circulating, going while he's dealing with the mud fever. Good times.
Good times. Okay. So it's your understanding based on the text messages that she'd already met with the school?
Yes.
Okay. And she's texting you about mud fever now?
Yes.
All right. What was the next text that came through?
I said, OMG, he needs some horse therapy. I bet he would love Mo.
And who were you talking about? Who's he?
Ethan.
Okay. And then what did you say after that?
Said, whatever works for you, just let me know. I only have Bella's lesson tonight at 5:30, so anytime after her lesson is fine.
Okay. And what was the response?
Okay, yeah, well, he'll be coming out with me tonight. James is working. He can't be left alone.
So he can't be left alone. Who did you understand her to be talking about?
I understood her to be talking about Ethan.
And you stated what?
I said that, or does he want to ride?
In her response?
And she said, I don't know, maybe brush a small horse so he's not intimidated, LOL.
And you're suggesting Mo,
Yes.
who I assume is a horse you own?
I do not own him. He is
Okay.
quartered at our facility.
All right. And your suggestion was what?
Make it a family event coming out to the barn. Really, though, I've seen some amazing things done with horses with kids.
And what did Jennifer say?
He needs something.
And then what else?
I said, let's make him a cowboy. And Jen had responded, LOL, mom goals for real.
All right, Kira, you know what happened on November 30th, don't you?
Yes.
When did you hear about it?
I heard about it when I got a call from one of my students' moms.
About what time was that?
That was in the early afternoon. I don't recall exactly what time.
Do you know people and kids that were in that school that day?
I do.
How many?
I know one for sure, which is one of my students, and I know some of the other kids, not personally, but that were in the school also.
Okay. When you heard about the shooting, was it public who was responsible for it?
It was not.
What was your thought?
And she says what?
Yes, please.
And then it looks like the next communication was from you at 2:58, and you
Yes.
stated what?
I just brought him in.
Now you're texting her a photo, I assume that's Billy.
Yes.
And did you text photos back and forth about the horse frequently?
Sometimes I would say that most of our conversations were related to the horses.
Okay.
Okay. And your response?
It's okay. Want me to work Billy for you?
And she says what?
Yes, please.
And then it looks like the next communication was from you at 2:58, and you
Yes.
stated what?
I just brought him in.
Now you're texting her a photo, I assume that's Billy.
Yes.
Did you text photos back and forth about the horse frequently?
Sometimes I would say that most of our conversations were related to the horses.
Okay. And you don't hear anything back until what time?
I don't hear anything back from her until Tuesday at 4:42, and she had responded, I need to sell my horses stat.
Okay. So you, that day, asked her if everything was okay. I heard there was a shooting in Oxford. Is Ethan okay? And then you again reach out at 4:21, correct?
Yes.
And you don't hear back from her until,
Tuesday at 4:42.
so the same day, and
Yes.
she's saying, I need to sell my horses stat.
Yes.
Okay. Did she go on to talk about why she needed to sell her horses?
No.
Okay. Eventually, did you continue working this out with did she want you to help her sell the horses?
Yes.
Okay. And did you do that?
I am still currently trying to help sell them.
Okay. Again, I believe that the drawing and the math worksheet is stipulated to, and that is people's proposed, Mr. Peace is gonna tell me. 7. So I move for the admission of that.
No objection, be admitted.
And that is okay. Should I publish, could I publish this on the screen, just so that we know there's 2 versions of that worksheet, so I want to make sure we're. Okay. Kira, the conversations that occurred afterwards, you seemed compassionate for Jennifer at the beginning, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and why were you?
I wanted more information on what happened.
Okay. And you stated a couple times in the exhibit, the conversations, just be honest.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
I wanted her to be honest about anything and everything. I'm a very truthful person, and I think that the truth is much better than a lie.
Okay. Did you suspect what was the reason you suspected that she might not be honest? Was there something that you were concerned about?
Your Honor, I would object that this calls for speculation, and also the question is presuming facts that were not in evidence prior to the question.
Response.
I'm not exactly sure what the objection is, but I can move on. So at some point, did you stop communicating with her?
I tried to still talk to her, but the conversations got fewer and far between.
Okay. Did Jennifer ever mention taking Ethan to the doctor?
No.
Did she ever talk about him needing to get a physical, or that he was ill and needed treatment?
I don't recall.
Did James ever talk about that?
No.
Okay. And did you ever hear either one of them talk about getting their son therapy?
No.
Okay. One moment, Your Honor. Just real quick, Kira, I understand that your farm is further north. What's the cell coverage like there?
It is better than a lot of other farms, but there are still areas where you don't really get great cell service.
Okay, but you can receive and take calls, receive and make calls.
Yes.
And how about text messages?
Yes.
Okay, and did the Crumbleys both have cell phones with them most of the time, do you know?
Yes.
Okay. Nothing further.
Thank you. Kira, what type of cell coverage do you have?
I have Verizon, which seems to be pretty good in that area.
is it fair to say that you don't know what other cell phones, like companies, how good the access is?
I do not know.
Are there parts of the farm where people complain they can't get messages or talk on the phone?
Some areas you can, some people get service, and then other areas some people don't, so it's
How,
inconsistent.
sorry, I
Yeah.
interrupted you. How big is the farm?
The farm is on 51 acres.
And in addition to the farm, there's a separate place where you do classes, is that correct? Or what is Groveland?
Groveland was the barn that we had previously boarded at. I boarded my horses there, and Jen had her horses there.
Is Groveland where you met Jen?
No, I met her at the previous farm before then.
Okay, so you guys were at the previous farm before then, you were both at Groveland, and then Jen went on to board her horses at your current barn.
I never boarded my horses at the first barn that I met her at.
That was just where you met her?
Yes.
Okay, and you said you believe you two met in about 2019, is that correct?
I believe it was earlier than that, but I can't say for sure. I don't remember.
It's fair to say that horses and training and what's going on with the horses at the barn, that's the majority of what you and Jennifer talk about, is that correct?
Yes.
Jennifer does not talk to you about when she goes to the doctor herself?
No.
Jennifer doesn't tell you about James's doctor's appointments?
No.
Jennifer never gave you much detail about the names of the people she worked with or what she did at work?
No.
Did Jennifer ever give you details about James, like who he worked with, things he did?
Not a whole lot of detail. I just know that she had said that he has been through a few different jobs.
Okay. And as far as Ethan goes, your testimony was you have not seen him at the barn. Did you ever see Ethan when he would go to Groveland?
I may have seen him once or twice when they were just dropping something off, but it was always a quick visit. I don't know if I've ever actually talked to him in person or over messages or call or anything.
And it's fair to say that you talked to Jen more about horses than Ethan, is that correct?
Yes.
And with respect to Ethan coming, you wouldn't have had a problem if Ethan came that day on November 30th, is that correct?
I would not have had an issue with him coming.
It would have been unusual for Ethan to come to the barn with Jen on the 30th, because he didn't normally go with her, is that correct?
Correct.
And on the 30th, when she was planning to bring Ethan, you assumed she was upset about Ethan or had some kind of concern for Ethan, is that correct?
Yes.
Jen also had the option to say to you, I'm canceling the lesson, I'm not gonna come, I won't be there, correct?
Yes.
And in her messages to you, it was clear to you that she did not want Ethan to be alone, is that correct?
Yes.
Did Jennifer talk to you about some of the comments on the math paperwork, such as, like, my life is useless, or the thoughts won't stop? Did Jennifer speak to you about any of the individual comments?
No, she had just sent me the picture.
Were you concerned that Ethan may be suicidal after seeing these notes?
Yes.
Prior to the 30th, when you saw this math note, had you ever been concerned that Ethan would be suicidal?
No.
Had you ever had reason to believe he was homicidal or he would hurt other people?
No.
Had you ever been given reason to believe he was not mentally sound, that he needed professional, medical help?
No.
In terms of your friendship with Jennifer, it's fair to say when she's texting you and she says something like LOL, you understand what she means by those comments, correct?
Yes.
So, for example, when she sends a text about, you send a text about, let's make Ethan a cowboy, is that correct?
Yes,
And she texts back, mom goals, something along those lines, correct?
yes,
You know that Jennifer is kidding around and sarcastic almost, is that correct?
Your Honor, I'm gonna object. I don't know how this witness could tell what's in the mind of Jennifer Crumbley.
I'll re-ask the question. Did you perceive her response as serious, that was a mom goal for her to make Ethan a cowboy?
I could see her wanting to be able to have her son out at the barn and go riding. A lot of parents want to do something with their kids, and that was how I took it. But a lot of boys don't really like to ride horses, so I didn't see it as a serious thing that would actually happen.
Okay, it's fair to say that you and Jennifer are able to kid back and forth though, correct?
Yes.
You testified that you don't see as many boys. Do you see more girls coming out to the barn for riding?
Yes.
How many more, what percentage would you say, if you were talking about young people, like teenagers, are girls versus boys?
Well, we currently do not have any boys coming out to ride, really. I mean, one of the other people at my barn has a younger male student, but outside of that, there are no other boys that come out to the barn.
Approximately how many girls are out at the barn on any given day?
I would say between 2 to 4 each day.
2 to 4 each day?
Yes.
And really no boys, is that correct?
Yes.
When people come out to the barn, is it pretty typical, if they have horses there, for them to be out there about 3 to 4 times per week for 3 hours each time?
It depends on each person's situation. Some people will see once a week. Some people will see every single day.
Okay, so there's nothing unusual about 3 to 4 times a week for 3 hours at a time?
Correct.
Okay. And it's not something that you thought was unusual to not see Ethan coming with his mother out to the barn, correct?
Correct.
You certainly don't follow up with other people who have sons that aren't present out at the farm, correct?
Correct.
In the text messages with Ethan, you said they were Facebook Messenger messages?
Yes, Facebook messages with Jennifer.
Jennifer and you go on, the whole exhibit has been admitted, so the whole packet is admitted.
Yeah.
It's fair to say that beyond what the prosecution showed, after those messages, you and Jennifer communicated about you buying Billy, is that correct?
Yes, I was planning to buy both Billy and Shorty.
And you talked about buying Billy, Shorty, the tack, other horse-related items?
Yes.
Okay, and you were talking to Jennifer about how the horses could be signed over or what you guys would need to do, is that correct?
Yes.
And in addition to the comments about the horses, it's fair to say that throughout the texts, you could tell Jennifer was upset.
Yes.
So, for example, when she said, "I'm bawling right now, Kira," how did you take that? What did you take that to mean?
She was upset and she really loves her horses.
And when Jennifer wrote, my son ruined so many lives today, what did you take that to mean?
I took that as he was the shooter at Oxford.
And you reassured her that you'll take care of the horse end for her to take something off her plate, correct?
Yes.
And you reassured her in terms of saying, try to get some rest, you'll need it, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Jennifer thanked you for not judging her unlike the rest of the world. How did you take that?
I didn't really know how to take that.
You did text Jennifer, I know you and James, correct?
Yes,
And you texted, this doesn't even remotely make me think it's your fault. You said, is that a message you sent Jen?
yes,
It sounds like Ethan was a troubled kid.
yes.
Is that correct? When you said, this doesn't even remotely make me think it's your fault, what did you mean by that?
I had never gotten the feeling that Jen and James had those types of issues with their son.
So, although you knew a limited amount about Ethan, because Ethan wasn't someone you frequently talked about, you never had the idea that something like the tragedy that happened on 11/30 could happen and Ethan could be responsible for it.
Correct.
You also tried to reassure her, try to stay calm and as collected as you can. Those were some messages you sent in addition to a message that said, just be honest about everything, correct?
Yes,
You also reassured her that you had ridden Billy that day, he was gonna be fine, helping alleviate stress on that end for Jen, is that correct?
yes,
When Jennifer texted you and said, I wish we had warnings, something, he's a good kid, they made a terrible decision, what did you think after getting that text?
I was thinking there had to have been some type of signs. She had mentioned in the past, like, you know, that he really didn't have friends, he didn't go out and do fun things, like, kids his age. So
Well, the text is from her to you saying, I wish we had warnings, something. He's a good kid, they made a terrible decision. You didn't point out to her things that you thought may have been signs in the past, correct?
correct,
You actually wrote there probably were warnings, but nobody saw them, correct?
yes,
And you said hindsight is always 20/20.
yes,
And we can all agree, looking back, when something bad happens, we look back at what could have prevented it, correct?
yes,
When Jennifer said he's a good kid, you didn't write back to her anything like, well, actually, your son is not a good kid, correct?
correct,
And although he didn't hang out with friends, you were aware that he had one friend he was particularly close to, correct?
yes,
And on Facebook, throughout Jen's profile, you said you were social media contact with her, is that correct?
yes,
Could you see pictures of them going camping and taking Ethan places?
I did see posts about them doing things with him.
So there were posts about the family spending time together, camping, going places on the weekend, correct?
Yes,
And you testified that you understood he played a lot of video games, is that correct?
yes,
And that never struck you as something that was overly problematic, correct?
no,
You had no reason to ever say to Jen, like, hey, Jen, wake up, there's signs, or anything like that.
no,
After you were aware that Ethan had been the shooter, you and Jennifer attempted to talk to each other on the phone. Do you recall that?
yes,
And do you recall that Jennifer said you had to call her through Facebook because she has to use a track phone?
yes,
At that point, did you and Jennifer have a telephone conversation?
we did not.
Okay, so in the Facebook Messenger thread, when it says, like, you missed a call from JC, I assume JC is Jennifer Crumbley.
Yes,
and then it says, call me back on Facebook. I'm on a track phone, I need to talk and figure some things out. You and Jennifer didn't have any phone contact at that point.
We did not.
And when Jennifer was on that track phone, she said it would be easier because texting on that phone is hard if you guys could talk, correct?
Yes.
Further down, you continue to let her know that Billy was fine, had a good ride with him, correct?
Yes.
And at that point, you became concerned about Jennifer coming out to the farm, is that correct?
Yes.
Why were you concerned with Jennifer coming to the farm?
Because I did not want them to take things that were owned by other boarders or myself.
You didn't want Jennifer to take things that were owned by other boarders or yourself?
Correct.
Did you, were you concerned about the safety of people at the farm if Jennifer and James showed up?
Yes.
Were you concerned because Jennifer showed you some of the threatening messages she had received?
Yes.
And when you explained to Jennifer you were concerned and wanted the police to be out there, you actually wrote, I don't want people to follow you or hurt you, correct?
Yes.
And you said, we just need to be careful.
Yes.
So nothing about any horse equipment or concerns.
No.
And were you afraid that people were going to follow the Crumbleys out to the farm and possibly hurt people?
I was worried about that.
After that discussion about the police, Mrs. Crumbly made it clear that they were headed to a safe place for a couple days. Is that correct?
Yes.
They did not tell you, she did not say the location they were going to, just a safe place.
Yes, she had said that it's a motel or hotel in Lapeer, and that was, I don't know where exactly they had gone.
And then your messages to her were, I'm very glad you're safe, I care about you guys, correct?
Yes.
Was that true?
Yes.
And again, you reassure her, I will take care of your boys, let me know when you want me to buy them and I'll buy them. You were trying to figure out something to see if you could buy them, is that right?
Yes.
You also said if you need anything, just let me know, correct?
Yes.
Doing all the things that you could do as a friend to Jennifer Crumbley.
Yes, and I also wanted to make sure that the horses didn't end up in a bad situation.
And Jennifer wanted to make sure the horses didn't end up in a bad situation too, as far as you could tell.
Yes.
And as you're texting her about the horses and everything else, in the little bit about what's going on after finding out about the shooting, you didn't follow up with her about what her work arrangements were?
No.
You didn't follow up with her about what, if James was still working or what he was doing?
No.
You didn't follow up with her about any other kind of personal issues related to her? All that you followed up about is what we can see in the texts.
Yes.
So it's fair to say that your friendship with Jennifer was pretty limited to horses, care for horses, and maybe just some friendly chit-chat, correct?
Yes.
Looking back, you're not looking at conversations regarding Ethan as anything where you should have contacted law enforcement, correct?
Correct.
Nothing where you should have had an alarm go off and say, ooh, I should call the police about this one.
Correct.
Even the day that you saw the drawing that's up on the board, you didn't contact law enforcement to say, I just saw like a really crazy drawing or anything along those lines?
I did not.
And if anything, Jennifer appeared to be very concerned about what was going on, correct?
Yes.
When Jennifer had ever been out to the school or not, you weren't aware of every time Jennifer had ever been over to Oxford High, is that fair to say?
Correct.
So that day stuck out as something unusual.
Yes.
You guys were attempting to put together, cash that you were potentially gonna pay her for horses, is that correct?
Yes,
Ultimately, the two of you never physically met up, is that correct?
correct.
So the extent of all of your communications is contained within these 28 pages of Facebook Messenger messages.
Yes,
You already testified there were no phone calls and there was no personal, like, one-on-one contact.
yes.
Your Honor, if I could just have one moment, I just need my. I have nothing further on behalf of Jennifer Crumbley.
Any questions that we have for James Crumley?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Pack, did I pronounce that correctly, Pack?
Yes,
Thank you. You testified that you didn't speak to James very often, did you?
yes,
That's correct, you did not speak to him?
Correct.
And when you did, it was about horses, is that fair?
yes,
Horse-related matters, correct?
yes,
He didn't tell you that he had to go to the doctor or anything, right?
no,
He didn't tell you that Jen had been to the doctor.
no,
He didn't talk about Ethan's medical appointments.
no,
So similar to Jen, he kept his communications with you about horses and horse-related matters, is that fair?
yes,
And you didn't reach out to James after seeing this picture from Jen and say, I'm really concerned about Ethan, right?
I did not.
And you testified previously that your communications with Jen or James, you never were concerned about Ethan, is that fair?
Correct.
There was never anything that you saw that gave you cause to be concerned about Ethan's mental health, right?
No,
And when you did talk to James, it was limited to horses and horse-related matters.
yes,
So it wasn't strange that he didn't talk about work, right?
correct.
Or doctor's appointments,
Yeah,
or
he,
Ethan.
correct.
His relationship with you was because of the horses.
Yes,
Nothing further, Judge.
Thank you. Any regret?
Briefly. Kira, you just testified that you didn't, I believe the testimony was you kept your conversations to friendly chit chat. Is that right?
yes.
Except that she did talk to you about her husband having an affair.
She never said that he had an affair, she
She-
just had a feeling.
She had a feeling. And she
Yes.
did talk to you about her son being weird.
Yes,
And she did talk to you about the fact that he only had one friend.
yes,
And she did talk to you about how he didn't like horses.
yes.
Okay. And in all the time that you've met Jennifer and James and you've known them, how many times have you seen Ethan?
Maybe once or twice.
Okay, let me ask you this. Did both parents have to go to the barn every time for 3 to 4 times a week, 3 hours at a time?
They did not have to go together.
Fair to say, some of that stuff, all of that stuff could have been done by one person.
Yes,
Okay. And when you told Miss Smith that Jennifer was very concerned, she still did, though, have the time to text you about Billy's mud fever
yes,
and arrange the lesson and then cancel the lesson.
yes,
Okay. And when you said you told her it's not your fault and you know hindsight is 20/20, at that time that you stated that, did you know that that they purchased a gun for Ethan and it was accessible to him?
I did not know that the gun was for Ethan or accessible.
Objection, Your Honor, about accessible. That was.
Your Honor, I'm not offering it to prove that it was. I'm asking, did she know?
Sustaining the objection, rephrase the question.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Did you know that Jennifer texted Ethan the day before about the ammunition search? LOL, you have to learn not to get caught.
I did not know.
Did you know that that the school told Jennifer and James they needed to get him therapy?
I did not know.
Did you know that when they heard about a shooting, that James went home to look to see if that gun was there?
I did not know that.
Did you know he called 911 and said, my son is the school shooter? He
I
thinks.
did not know that.
And did you know that Jennifer texted, don't do it, Ethan, don't do it?
I did not know that either.
Nothing further.
Okay, can you step down?
The prosecution calls Andrew Smith, and I believe somebody's gonna go here.
To be fair, we'll be right here, so it's helpful.
Yes.
And you're outside.
She's excused from her?
Any objection?
No, Judge, thank you.
Not for Mr. Crumley, Your Honor, excuse me.
What is the number we admitted of the, that map?
7. That's
Hey, Mark, I think we invented one that was further down, that wasn't even 7, because the screenshots are removed. There was another one that was further down, and the screenshots are removed. What one is that?
Sir, if you'll, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to testify by the way you true and the honesty of perjury?
Yes.
Okay, please have a seat. And if you could scoot up as close as possible to those microphones, they do amplify your voice along with record your voice. It's very important for you to respond to all questions verbally. Please refrain from nodding your head or saying "uh-huh" or "uh-huh" because it's difficult for the recorder to record. Additionally, if you could keep your voice up so everybody can hear you, that would be helpful. I will leave it up to you as to whether or not you're comfortable removing your mask. If you want to remove your mask and you're comfortable doing so, you may. As you can see, we do have plexiglass around the witness stand, or you can keep it on, okay?
I'll see how it goes, okay.
I'm sorry?
I'll see if
It's gonna be difficult to hear you.
And then you do need to keep your voice up though,
Okay.
okay? If you could please state and spell both your first and last name for the record.
Andrew Smith, ANDREW SMITH.
Thank you. Go ahead, Nicole.
Mr. Smith, you're a lawyer, correct?
Correct.
In fact, you practice in front of this judge and you're familiar with going to court.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. And can you tell me what your position is now, though?
I work as Chief Operations Officer for a real estate company.
Okay. And what are your duties?
Manage the operations of the company, of the portfolio of properties.
And how many employees are in the company?
Approximately 700.
All right. Do you know Jennifer Crumbley?
Yes.
Do you know James Crumbley?
No.
All right. Do you see Jennifer Crumbley in the courtroom here today?
Yes, I do.
Can you describe something she's wearing?
She's wearing the black and white, looks like prison clothing and a mask.
Can the record reflect that he's properly identified, Mrs. Crumbley? Jennifer Crumbley.
So noted.
When did Jennifer Crumbley begin working for the company?
I think she began working approximately 5 years ago.
And were you her direct supervisor?
I was most recently, but not when she was hired.
Okay, so for how long were you her supervisor? How many years?
Approximately a year and a half, I think, to 2 years.
All right, and what were her responsibilities and title?
She was a marketing director in charge of the marketing for the entire company and the portfolio of properties.
Okay, you have to keep your voice
Excuse me.
way up.
She was a marketing director for the company.
Okay, and as a marketing director, what does that entail? What kinds of mediums or services is she overseeing?
Responsible for marketing the property, the asset, and responsible for social media, for reviews, ratings, online reviews, website, web-related materials, working with third-party vendors, working with the properties on their internal, external marketing portfolio, things of that nature.
Okay, and the company has all social media?
Yes, we have a large social media platform for the property.
Instagram,
I believe so, yes, yes,
Facebook,
yes.
Twitter?
I don't think Twitter.
Okay. So what were Jennifer Crumbley's work hours?
Standard 40 hours a week. I think she came in at 8 o'clock or before, leave around 4 o'clock.
Was that the same every day?
I believe so for the most part, yes.
And in your company, do employees have to choose which hours they work and work the same every day, or is it flexible?
It's somewhat flexible. We want a 40-hour work week, 8-hour days, and we give some flexibility on start time.
And do you allow employees to work from home?
We have when needed, yes.
Has Jennifer Crumbley ever worked from home?
I believe so at times, yes.
Would you describe your company as family-friendly?
Yes, very much.
How so?
I think we're very family-friendly. If there's ever a need for time for a family issue, it's always been granted.
Okay. Taking you back to November 30th, do you remember that day?
I do.
And do you remember having any contact with Jennifer Crumbley?
I do.
Can you tell the court what was your first contact?
I received a text message from Miss Crumbly that morning at about 10 a.m.
Was it a text or Facebook Messenger?
A text message on a phone.
Is that how you normally communicated with her?
In person, by email, or by phone.
Text
But-
or Facebook Messenger is what I'm.
Oh, text message would
Okay.
be, yes, text.
About approximately what time was that, if you know?
I believe 10 a.m.
And what were you doing at the time?
It's driving.
Okay. Your Honor, I think at this point I'd like to approach with people's proposed 8, and I believe there's a stipulation to it. May I approach?
Yes.
And that's correct, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Smith, what are you looking at? What did I just hand you?
You handed me what appears to be a text thread from Miss Crumbly.
And who?
Mrs. Crumbly. And me, myself, correct.
Okay, so can you tell the court again exactly what time did you first hear from her?
10:05 a.m.
And you were where at the time?
I was driving my vehicle.
Okay, did you get a good look at the text?
I saw that she texted me while driving that she was going to her child's school to meet with a counselor.
Okay, was that something that she's required to do if she leaves work?
You're supposed to let your supervisor know if you're going to be leaving work, yes.
Okay. And did you respond?
No.
All right, may I publish the exhibit? Okay, so the worksheet, which has also previously been exhibited, entered into evidence, she also attached the math worksheet, correct?
Correct, yes.
All right, and what exactly, can you read the text that she sent?
I have to go to my kid's school. Counselor just called, and this is what I'm dealing with. I'll be back by 11:30, 12 at the latest.
Okay. And then what was the next communication you had with Jennifer Crumbley?
I believe I saw her at work around noon that day.
Did you take a good look at that worksheet?
I did, but not at that time.
Okay. So you said you saw her later at work. Do you know what time that was?
It was approximately 12 p.m.
Okay. And where did you see her?
I saw her in the copy room in her office.
And just to stop, did you know anything about her son?
No, nothing more than maybe small talk.
Okay. Did she ever talk about her son with you?
Not really, no. Maybe some small talk here and there, but not much at all, no.
Did she talk about anything that she did outside of work?
Very little. She talked about her horses, and she owned horses, and she really enjoyed horses. Maybe a vacation here or there, a little travel, but not a lot, no.
Okay. So the next time you saw Jennifer, I'm sorry, you said was around what time?
About 12 p.m. on that day.
Okay, and did you have a conversation with her?
Yes.
And what was the conversation about?
I recall asking her how things were, how she was doing, and she had said that her son needed to get some counseling. And I think she mentioned his dog, a family pet had passed away, and a grandparent had passed away recently, and she felt like she was failing or failed him.
I'm sorry, she said what?
I think she said she felt as if she was failing him or a failure.
All right. When she said she had to get counseling, did she say why?
No. Oh, she didn't say why. She just mentioned that a family pet had passed away, a grandparent had passed away, but she didn't say why.
Did she
needed it.
tell you what the situation was at school?
No, just that she was told she needed to get some counseling for her son.
Okay, and her son was not with her, correct?
No, not when I was talking to her, no.
Okay. By the way, you do allow kids to come to your workplace, right?
It's happened, yeah, quite a bit,
Okay.
actually.
Can you tell the court what was on Jennifer Crumbley's schedule that day?
I know we had a meeting scheduled to visit the property that afternoon.
And did you talk to her about going to the meeting?
Yes.
When did you speak with her?
We may have talked before the 30th, but we talked that day, that afternoon.
Where did you have that conversation?
Shortly after we talked in the copy room, so maybe 20 minutes, half hour later, her and another colleague and I had a brief conversation about the property visit that afternoon and about some phone calls we had scheduled the next day.
And was she required to go to that meeting?
She was invited, not required.
Did you tell her she had to go?
No.
Did you tell her she didn't have to go?
At that meeting, I mentioned to her, it was her choice, she did not need to come. I did say that, yes.
Okay. And if she had not returned to work that afternoon, what would have happened to Jennifer Crumbley at her workplace?
I'm confused. If she
Would
had
she have been
decided
disciplined if she didn't come back to work that afternoon?
for,
After she went to the school? Thanks, Judge.
I don't, no, not at all.
Okay, what is the protocol if somebody has to leave for an issue with their child or something else?
Well, we have a PTO policy, but when it comes to
What does PTO stand for?
paid time off,
Okay,
which you would submit your time on an online portal. But if you had a family issue, you would always be granted time for family, whatever it may be.
okay. And did she ever request to leave that day after she went to the school and came back?
She never requested, but she did leave that day, yes.
Okay, we're gonna get to that in a minute.
Okay.
What was the next time that you spoke to Jennifer after you had the meeting about the schedule that day?
The next time I spoke to her was briefly when I heard her screaming down the hallway.
How far away is your office from hers?
10 feet?
Okay, and what, you said you heard screaming?
Yeah, I heard some loud yelling, screaming.
And what did you do?
I heard it, I think I was on a call or a Zoom, and I walked out of my office to see what was going on, and I saw and heard Mrs. Crumbly say that there was an active shooter at her child's school, that she had to go.
And did she leave?
She did.
And I assume you didn't have a problem with that?
I said, go.
Okay, what, did you hear from her again that day?
Yes.
Can you tell the court, how did you hear? Was it a text, a call?
I received both. She had texted and she made 2 phone calls that day.
Do you know what time those occurred?
I received text message about 20, 30 minutes after she left.
Okay, let's, we have the exhibit published. And can you read that text that came in at 1:23 p.m.?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know, if you know, how long after, how long it was from the time she left to the time she sent that text?
I think 20, 30 minutes.
Okay, can you read the text?
The gun is gone and so are the bullets.
Okay. What, when she texts, the gun is gone and so are the bullets, did you know anything about a gun at this point?
Not at all, no.
And what did you think when you received that?
I didn't know what she was saying. I was concerned.
Okay, and what happened after that?
I texted her back. I said, I'm praying everything is okay. I didn't know what to say at the time. I was
Did you know that there was a gun or bullets in the home at all?
not that I'm aware of, no.
Not what?
Not that I was aware of, no.
Okay, so had you had a previous conversation with Jennifer Crumbley about guns?
None that I recall, no.
Okay, and do you follow her on social media?
Yes, at the time I did.
Okay, and do you regularly look at her posts?
I don't regularly, but I see her post. I would see her post time to time, yes.
And did you ever remember seeing a post about a gun
I remember seeing a post about a shooting range.
before the 30th?
I don't recall before or after. I don't recall.
Okay, and what did she respond? When did the first phone call come?
It was about 1:30, 1:25, 1:30.
So was it before the next text?
Yes, I believe it was, yes. Yes.
Okay, and what was the phone call? It was to your phone?
She called my cell phone, correct.
And then what did you do?
I had walked down to our HR director's office.
And what is her name?
Kathy Poliquin.
Okay,
When I received this text, I was, I believe, in a hearing on a Zoom meeting, and I stepped away because I was concerned by what I had just received and learned, and walked down to our HR director's office. In her office, I received the phone call.
And did you have the phone on speaker, or did you just take the call in her office?
I took the call and put it on speaker.
Okay, and what did Jennifer say?
I recall her saying she was trying to get to her child's school. She sounded frantic. You could hear ambulance or sirens in the background, and that their gun was missing, or their gun was missing.
When she said, how did she describe the gun?
I don't recall exactly, just that there was a gun missing, that their gun was missing.
Okay, and what did you say, if anything?
Kathy and I both told her, you need to call the police.
And what did she say?
She said that my husband is at home and already called the police.
Okay, and then did the call end right then, or was there more conversation?
I don't recall more. I think it ended shortly after. We might have said, you know, please let us know if you need anything, but I don't recall exactly anything more.
Okay, and after that, then you received the next text?
Yes, I believe so.
And what does it say?
OMG, Andy, he's going to kill himself. He must be the shooter.
And then the next text?
I need a lawyer at
Text.
substation with police.
And then what else?
Ethan did it.
Okay, what was your response at this point?
Complete shock.
And what did you do?
I let my HR director know at the time. We didn't really know what to do. We were looking for the story online to see if everyone was okay. We didn't know what was going on. We were really concerned, greatly concerned and shocked at what we were learning.
Did she make another phone call to you?
Yes,
Do you know when that occurred?
that was about 2:15, I think.
Okay, so there was what was the 2:15 call about? And who was present?
I was in our HR director's office. I put it on speaker, and she had said she had saw her son at the police station. I recall her saying that, and I recall her saying that she asked if I could recommend a lawyer.
And what did you say?
At the time, I couldn't think of anything. I couldn't think of a lawyer. I told her I'd ask our corporate counsel, but I couldn't think of one. I'm sorry.
And why couldn't you think of a lawyer? I assume you know a lot of lawyers.
I do. I was completely in shock and overwhelmed by what we had learned. I couldn't think of anyone that would in a million years be able to suggest for this matter.
Okay,
I didn't even know where to start.
okay, and then the next time you hear from Jennifer Crumbley is when?
I received a text at 3:39 p.m. that day.
Okay, and what does the text say?
I need my job. Please don't judge me for what my son did.
And what did you think about that?
I was surprised by that text.
Why is that?
I was surprised she was worried about her job at the time. I thought she'd be more worried about what was going on.
And at that point, was the news public?
Yes, we had learned there was a shooting. We were still finding out more, but we had learned that there was an active shooting at the school, yes.
Okay, one moment, Your Honor.
Okay, just for clarification, I know that this exhibit was stipulated to, I just want the record to be clear that it's been admitted pursuant to stipulation.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Probably.
Mr. Smith, at some point, that meeting you spoke of that Mrs. Crumbly, would you consider it optional that she go to that meeting?
Yes, she was invited. She did not have to attend.
Did it actually take place?
No.
Why didn't it take place?
With what happened that day was the last thing we were worried about was going to visit a property.
Okay, nothing further.
You cross on behalf of Jennifer.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
My name is Shannon Smith. I'm the lawyer representing Jennifer Crumbley. If I ask any confusing questions, please let me know.
Okay.
You testified that the company is family friendly, correct?
Correct.
If people need time off to do things for their children, your company's flexible and allows that to happen.
Yes.
And in terms of with Jennifer Crumbley, you were aware Ethan was her son.
Yes.
And while you didn't discuss Ethan very often, she didn't make it any secret she had Ethan as her son, correct?
No, I knew she had a son named Ethan, yes.
Okay, and did you see that she had photographs of him playing soccer up in her office?
It sounds familiar, yes.
And most of what you and Jennifer talk about in the grand scheme of things is work-related issues, correct?
Yes,
Would you describe Jennifer as being somebody who's very conscientious about her work?
yes,
And would you agree with me that she's a definite go-getter, wanting to get promotions, wanting to make more money, wanting to get further ahead?
she was definitely professional and very good. She was good at her job and handled herself very well, yes.
The position that she was in on November 30th, that position, I think you said, was Director of Marketing, is that correct?
Correct.
And the director role was actually a newer role for Jennifer. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe she had been in that position for about a year and a half.
Okay, so prior to her being in that position, she was in a lower position and she had worked up to being the director.
Yes,
And it's fair to say Jennifer appears to be a hard worker.
I believe so, yes.
And, okay, so you've been in touch with her and working with her the entire time she's been employed at the company, correct?
She didn't report to me until she became the Director of Marketing, but we would have had interaction before that time, yes.
Okay, thank you. When you were talking to Jennifer and she mentioned she had to go over to the school counselor, you testified that she said something about, I feel like a failure. Is that correct?
Yes,
What did you take that to mean?
I didn't know. I didn't know. I think she just felt sad about the situation.
Okay. Did she seem nervous or upset, anything like that?
She seems somewhat down.
Okay. So she left work and she went over to the school. And I believe the text, or you understood, did she tell you she was going to the school, or was it just the text that said I have to go to my kid's school?
I just received the text.
And was it frequent that you would get texts from her that she had to go to the school to see the counselor?
I don't recall any other text regarding a counselor, no.
Was there ever were there other times where Jennifer had to go over and meet with people at the school, as far as you know?
I don't know.
It's fair to say that Jennifer having to go over to the school, that wasn't something that consistently disrupted work.
Not that I recall, no.
So you testified she went over to the school, and then did you say there was a phone call after she left the school? Or what was the next phone call?
I received a phone call from her that afternoon.
Okay, and that afternoon, the phone call, you described her as being frantic.
Yes.
Okay, tell me what you mean by that.
She seemed very alarmed and concerned.
Did she seem upset?
She seemed very alarmed, concerned. I guess you could say upset, yes, but it was more that she was in a frantic, concerned tone.
And was that when it was your understanding she was trying to get to the child's school?
Yes.
And it was in that phone call where she told you that there was a gun and that James had already called the police about the gun, is that correct?
Correct.
At that point in time, did you and Jennifer discuss any other issues?
Not that I recall.
Okay, was it a conversation that was frantic in terms of fast-paced, or was it slower paced? Do you recall how that call was?
I just recall she was frantic and you could tell very alarmed.
Okay, and obviously that concerned you.
Absolutely.
When you received the text that said, "Oh my God, Andy, he's going to kill himself. He must be the shooter." What did you take that text to mean?
I don't know how to answer. I was very alarmed by the text, obviously.
Ethan being suicidal, was that something that you had ever discussed with Jennifer Crumbley?
No.
Ethan being a shooter of any person, or being thought to be homicidal, was that something you had ever discussed with Jennifer?
No,
Had you ever had thoughts in your mind that, based on what Jennifer said in front of you, that Ethan would be a school shooter?
no,
As far as you are aware, Jennifer is the breadwinner in the home. Is that a fair statement?
I don't know.
So you don't discuss the details of James' employment or what James does with him?
I've never discussed anything with James before, no.
Okay, and as far as you know, Jennifer's never given you details about his employment or anything like that?
I believe she may have mentioned he got laid off or was in between jobs at one point. Yeah, I remember that, yes.
Okay, as far as rubbed you as strange, correct?
No,
There was no time where you ever went to Jennifer and said, I'm really concerned about your son or the way your relationship with Jennifer just isn't one where that kind of conversation would be normal.
that's a fair statement, yes.
You testified that you were in complete shock. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Did you, when in talking to Jennifer on the phone calls and through the text messages, did you have an opinion about whether she seemed like she was in shock?
Are you asking when she was on the phone?
Yeah, or through the text messages?
Well, I can't speak to how she felt in the text, but on the phone, she definitely sounded frantic and as if she was in a panic mode.
And when the prosecution asked you about the text where Jennifer said, I need my job, please don't judge me for what my son did, you recall that text, correct?
I do, yes.
And you testified that you thought it was strange she'd be worried about that with everything going on, is that correct?
Yes,
It's fair to say that you don't know what she was worried about in that moment, except for, in part, her job, correct?
what, she had called us prior to that, letting us know that she was at the police station and saw her son. I figured she was worried about her child.
Okay, so we can agree that while she was worried about her job, she could have been worried about many other topics at the same time.
Sure, yes.
Okay, and in your conversations with her, you did understand her to be worried about other things, such as Ethan being at the police station, lawyers, things along those lines.
I was aware she was worried about her son, yes.
Your Honor, I have nothing further for Ms. Crumbley at this time.
Any questions of any cross board change?
None, Your Honor.
Any of you, Your Honor?
Briefly, Mr. Smith, at some point, did you get a chance to go back and look at that math worksheet?
At some point, yes, I did.
When did you do that?
Later that afternoon.
And what did you look at it in detail?
Yes, I looked at it after we learned of what had happened.
And what was your thought about it?
I was troubled. It was concerning.
Why is that?
It's a concerning message. It looks like it's someone trying for help.
Okay, nothing further.
Your Honor, may I ask one follow-up? When you say that it looks like someone asking for help, that could be a concern of suicide, is that correct?
I'm not sure I can answer that correctly, but sure, I guess, yes.
When someone writes, help me and my life is useless.
That was concerning, yes.
Thank you.
Briefly, Your Honor, did you see the picture of the gun?
Yes,
Did you know that it was identical to the gun that they bought their son?
no.
Okay, nothing further.
Thank you, you can step down.
Prosecution calls,
Any,
sorry.
witness the excuse?
Yes,
Any objection?
no objection.
No objection.
No.
Can you grab it?
I'm gonna take about a 5-minute break.
Okay, thank you. Kathy.
Yeah, they're gonna take you down. I have no idea. I thought there was an exhibit later in the list that we had read of the actual worksheet.
Yes.
What number is it? Okay, so you're not admitting it then, like, as a separate? I don't care if you do that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably do it.
Okay. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I just, I thought they had moved it down there, keeping track.
And then,
Yeah. Okay. Okay, got it, thank you.
I mean, that's the communications office. I know some.
Yeah.
Speakers are off. Yeah, so it's just a. Okay. It's a far left, looking on. Probably, well, you can need to open the video. I'll just let you know.
to the admission of 1 through 5. So I would,
Yes, for those to be admitted.
yes,
Is that correct? You both attorneys stipulate to the admission of exhibits 1 through 5?
That is correct, but my understanding is, and I just want to make sure this is correct, that number 5 is going to be played.
that's
Okay.
I'm sorry, number 5 is going to be what?
played in the courtroom, not.
But all 5 have been stipulated, in terms of the admissibility of them, you have stipulated to the admission of all 5.
Yes, Judge.
The issue that you want to address with the court before we start, do you want
Yeah.
to address it up at the bench or?
No, very quickly, when my client is seated and writing down on her lap, the camera can focus in on her papers and has. I would ask that the cameras not be allowed to focus in on papers and that the media explicitly be told that cannot happen.
Let me go and help out.
Thank you.
Okay, we are back on the record on People versus Jennifer Crumbley and People versus James Crumbly. The defense counsel has brought up an issue relative to any filming and or photographing of notes taken by the attorneys and or the defendants. I am going to direct the media, do not zero in or take any photographs of their notes to each other. That is prohibited, strictly prohibited. That is attorney-client communication, and it is not to be divulged in any way, shape, or form. Okay. Okay, you ready to call your next witness?
I am, Your Honor. The prosecution calls Kathy Cullen.
Ma'am, if you'll please just raise your right hand for me. You solemnly swear any testimony you're going to give will be the truth under the penalty of perjury. You may have to keep your voice up for me. I do. Okay. You can have a seat, please. And if you could scoot as close as you can to those microphones, I'd appreciate it. I am going to ask you to please keep your voice up when testifying so that everybody can hear you and we can record you. Additionally, it is very important for you to verbalize all responses. Okay, if you shake your head or say on my court recorder cannot record that. Okay. Okay. So again, I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up. Yes. All right. All right. First, I'd like you to state and spell your first and last name for me.
Kathy Poliquin, KATHY POLIQUIN.
Thank you. Go ahead, counsel.
Kathy, just for purposes of laying the groundwork here, you work for a real estate management company, correct? Correct. Okay, what's your title there?
Director of Human Resources.
Okay, and again, remembering, try to match the volume of my voice. What do you oversee? What are your duties?
I oversee all human resource functions, all the employees in all of our locations, including our corporate office, anything dealing with payroll, benefits, disciplinary, hiring, firing, anything human resource related.
And how long have you done that job?
16 years.
Okay, do you know Jennifer Crumbley?
Yes.
Do you know James Crumbley?
No.
Do you see Jennifer here in the courtroom?
Yes.
Can you describe something she's wearing to the court?
What she is wearing, black and white jumpsuit.
May the record reflect she's properly identified, Jennifer.
No objection. So noted.
When did you first meet Jennifer Crumbley?
Almost 5 years ago.
Is that when she began working there?
Yes.
All right, and when she was hired, what was her position?
A marketing assistant.
What was her position at the time she left? She was terminated.
Director of marketing.
And what was your interaction with Jennifer? How frequent was your interactions? Were your interactions?
Minimal.
Did you ever socialize or see her outside of work?
Minimal.
In what capacity?
Just a few Facebook texts, casual,
Okay. Were you friends?
friendly, friends.
And did she ever share anything personal about with you?
Very minimal.
What did you know about her based on what she told you?
That I know she loves horses. I know that she worked at the ski patrol at Pine Knob.
I'm sorry, the what?
Ski
Ski
patrol.
patrol at Pine Knob, okay.
And just minimally giving me some information when her husband had lost a job and took a job with DoorDash.
And when did she tell you he took the job with DoorDash?
A few months ago?
Did you know she had a son?
Yes.
Did she talk about him much?
No.
Would you describe your workplace family friendly?
Yes.
What would you mean by that?
Our core values is family first. Attend to a family issue, they had to leave for an emergency. It was never said no. You know, go tend to your concerns or your problems, and that's it. We never, held anyone back.
And did Jennifer directly report to you?
No.
So when did you interact with her with regard, is it pay, hours, time off?
Sometimes, usually she would help me with employment and postings on social media.
Okay. And when employees need to take time off, what's the procedure or protocol?
Procedure, they are to ask permission from their immediate supervisor first, and then they enter their time into our payroll system for PTO paid time off.
And how is PTO accumulated?
It is upon hire, they would earn 48 hours at 90 days. And then at 1 year of employment, they would earn 88 hours of PTO. 2 years, they would earn 128 hours of PTO, and 5 years and beyond, it would be 168 hours PTO.
And as part of your job, do you keep track of that?
Yeah, I do through our payroll system.
And do you manage the documents and records related to benefits and time off and employment?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if Jennifer had any PTO time on November 30th? Meaning, if she had to take time off, was that available to her?
Yes, I believe she had 12 hours of PTO remaining at that time.
Do you follow Jennifer on social media?
I am Facebook friends. I don't really follow.
Does the company offer health insurance?
Yes.
Does it offer health insurance for a single person and a family?
Yes.
Was Jennifer's son covered on her health insurance?
No.
Was Jennifer covered on her health insurance?
Yes.
Was James?
No.
Does your policy provide any assistance or insurance for mental health treatment?
Yes.
You said you are associated with Jennifer on social media. Did you ever see a post about a gun?
Yes.
Do you remember when you saw that?
I don't know exactly when. It was in the past couple months.
Okay. And what was your reaction to the post about the gun and her son?
I was kind of like, okay, I wouldn't have done that, but kind of moved along.
Okay. And why were you? I'm not sure how to characterize but would you say you thought it was odd or different or not something you would do? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Not really appropriate, but
why not?
Something I would not have done with my child.
Okay. Did Jennifer ever talk to you about guns?
No.
Did she ever talk to you about her son?
No.
Do you know if Jennifer was at work on November 29th?
Yes.
You know that you saw her, or it was recorded that she was at work?
It was recorded on her time card.
Okay. Did you see Jennifer on November 30th?
No.
Did you talk to her?
Yes.
And do you know if she came into work that day?
No.
You don't know, or she didn't?
No, I don't know.
Okay,
I did not see her.
okay, so, but at some point you talked to her, how did that come about?
I only talked to her when Andy Smith came into my office and had John on his cell phone.
And what was Jen, do you remember about what time that was?
Midday.
Had the news of the Oxford school shooting been made public at that point?
I don't know.
Do you know if you knew anything about it before you came into your office?
I knew nothing about it.
Okay, what was Jennifer saying on the phone?
She was very hysterical. I don't recall verbatim. Very hysterical. She was trying to get to the school. I believe she was talking about, you know, the gun was missing. She was concerned about it could be Ethan.
When she said the gun, did you know what gun she was talking about?
I was assuming it was her handgun. That was, I saw on social media.
You were assuming it was the same gun that was posted on Instagram, got my son a gun on early Christmas present, is that the post? Okay. And did you ever see the exhibit that's up on the screen, the math worksheet?
Yes.
When did you see it?
I saw it at the same time Andy Smith came into my office with John on the phone. He put his cell phone down and pulled up the picture of that on his phone.
And did you take a good look at it?
I did.
When?
While he was talking on the phone.
What was your thought?
My first thought was this boy needs help.
Okay, did you say anything about it?
No.
Okay, so you were just listening to
Yes.
Jennifer? And at some point, did you talk to Jennifer again that day?
Yes.
How many times?
Maybe one or two. I don't recall how many.
And what was the purpose of did she call you or did you call her?
She called me. I did not call her.
Okay, and were you ever involved in any calls that she and Andy had?
I believe we were on a call together.
Okay, what was the purpose of the calls from Jennifer?
I recall one conversation. She was afraid to lose her job.
Do you remember what time that was?
I don't recall the exact time.
Was it during the work hours?
It was during work hours.
Okay. And what was your response?
Our response was to tend to your family and don't worry about work. Just tend to your family. Let's talk about it next week.
Did you get another request to come to about work?
Yes.
And what was it?
It was this same request that she didn't want to lose her job. She was afraid to lose her job. And another senior leadership, Nancy Lutfi, was with us on the phone and stated that she was going to be on administrative leave for the next couple of weeks and just to not worry about work.
What did Jennifer say?
Thank you. She said to tell our senior leadership, thank you.
Did she ever say she wanted to come into work?
She did.
What did she say?
That she wanted to come in. She thought she could possibly come in a few days later, maybe for a half a day to get her mind off things.
Later that week, the week of the shooting?
Yes, what day was the shooting?
Tuesday, November 30th.
Yes, Thursday or Friday.
So she wanted to come in back to work that week.
Yes.
And what was your response?
She said, no, you're on administrative leave.
Okay.
Don't worry about coming into work. We'll talk in 4 weeks.
And did you ever hear Jennifer ask to leave work to take Ethan to present to the doctor?
No.
Do you know, did she ever talk about him getting any kind of medical attention?
No.
All right. Did she ever talk about her horses getting medical attention?
I think a few times she had mentioned that the horse was sick.
Okay. One moment, Renner. I'm all set.
Any cross on behalf of Jennifer Crumbley?
Yes, Your Honor. I want to go through the November 30th date with you. When you were with, it sounds like Andy Smith, and he came into your office with Jennifer on the phone. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you testified that she was hysterical. Did I get that right?
Correct.
Can you describe what it means can you describe what you mean by that?
I don't recall exactly what she was saying. I know she was just very upset. She was trying to get to the school. I believe she said the roads were closed off. She was having a difficult time getting there. We had said to her, call the police. She said, James already did.
When you were with, it sounds like Andy Smith, and he came into your office with Jennifer on the phone. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you testified that she was hysterical. Did I get that right?
Correct.
Can you describe what it means can you describe what you mean by that?
I don't recall exactly what she was saying. I know she was just very upset. She was trying to get to the school. I believe she said the roads were closed off. She was having a difficult time getting there. We had said to her, call the police. She said, James already did. The gun was missing, but she was just, I can't put, I don't recall exactly what she said, but she was just really upset and hysterical.
Did she sound panicked?
Panicked? Yeah, yes,
Was she talking fast?
yes,
You and Andy were trying to just get her to at least stay calm, is that correct?
yes,
It was a separate phone call, when Jen was asking if she still had her job, is that correct?
yes,
And she told you part of the reason she didn't wanna, she told you she didn't know how to handle this, correct?
yes,
And she doesn't know, she told you, she needed information from you so that she could get money to pay for a lawyer, is that correct?
yeah, yes, I think she wanted check stubs.
You would be the person to contact for check stubs or verification of employment, correct?
Yes,
And Jennifer explicitly said she needs to get a loan to pay to have a lawyer, correct?
yes,
So any kind of check stubs or documents you needed to prepare, she would have asked you for those materials, correct?
yeah, as an active employee, she still had access to her check stubs. She just had to log into the payroll system. But-
Okay, but if, like, for example, a loan officer needed documentation or something, as the HR person, you can send those materials along, correct?
Yes,
Now, as you were talking to Ms. Crumbly, she also sent you a different email address to send any materials to from her pay stubs and things like that, correct?
yes,
She indicated to you her Outlook isn't working, and she needed you to use this other address.
yes,
So the bulk of your conversation is really about these logistics, about pay stubs, this is happening, and in the background, you know, she's driving to the school, she's frantic, trying to get there, correct?
she wasn't driving to the school about the conversation with check stubs.
I'm sorry, so the check stubs conversation was after she had already been at the school.
Yes,
It's fair to say during that conversation, she still sounded upset and not like her normal self.
she was upset, not as hysterical as she was earlier.
When you spoke with police, you told them how Jennifer had offered to come back to work. Do you recall that?
Yes,
And specifically, you said that Jennifer said she wanted to come back to work maybe half days the following week. Do you recall telling law enforcement that?
I don't recall, but I may have.
Does that sound accurate?
It sounds accurate.
If anything, you and anyone else from the company that you were with that day was supportive to Jennifer Crumbley, correct?
Yes,
Everyone at your office that you were around that day was surprised by what was taking place at Oxford School.
yes,
High School. Ms. Crumbley was also asking you questions about how much is in her 401k, things along those lines, correct?
Yes.
And she's trying to get the company ID for sites like Paylocity. Is that a payroll company you use?
Yes.
You were trying to help her with that because even that site was having issues that day, is that correct?
Yes.
So a lot of your conversations with Jen regarding her employment, HR issues, those are not topics that would surprise you that Jennifer would call you about, correct?
Correct.
If Jennifer in the past was having an argument with Ethan or something along those lines, that's not something Jennifer would have come and talked to you about, correct?
That is correct.
If she had done that, that would be unusual.
Yes, we didn't have that kind of relationship.
So you had certainly a professional relationship
Yes.
where the questions about her job, payroll, pay stubs, proof of employment were relevant to what you do for the company.
Yes.
Your office is not far from Jennifer's, where Jennifer sits, is that correct?
It is a good distance away. Yes.
You've been down by her desk
Yes.
and you've seen that she has family photographs and things like that.
Yes.
On her Facebook feed, you saw the photograph of the gun in a post from Jennifer days before, is that correct?
Correct.
And you never spoke with Jennifer about that post.
No.
You testified that it was not appropriate. It would not be appropriate in your mind for you to post something like that. Is that correct?
Correct.
It's fair to say you're not into guns.
Correct.
It's fair to say you don't go to the shooting range and enjoy that kind of a hobby, correct?
Correct.
And based on Jennifer's Facebook, there were pictures of targets after they had gone to a shooting range. You saw those as well?
Yes.
Okay, and you saw the photograph of the gun.
Yes.
In terms of Facebook overall, Jennifer also posted about vacations, camping trips, things along those lines. Is that correct?
She may have. I don't really read people's feeds, so I don't know.
Okay. Did you go back and look at her feed since November 30th when everything unfolded?
No.
If I told you that there are photographs, family photographs, things like that, would you be surprised?
No.
When was it that you saw the math page during the day of November 30th? Who showed you that page?
Andy Smith had it on his phone when he came into my office, and then he pulled that up while she was talking.
Did that happen when, before or after the first call when Jennifer was on her way to the school?
That was the first call that I was on the phone with her and Andy.
And I'm sorry, so you saw this photograph before that phone call?
No.
I'm sorry, tell me the order of events, I'm missing it.
When Andy Smith came into my office and put Jen on speakerphone was the first I've learned of anything. And he brought that picture up on his phone at that time while she was talking hysterically, trying to drive to the school.
You did not talk to her though about the contents of that page, anything on there, correct?
No, correct.
It was the kind of thing where you're having a conversation on speakerphone and Andy was showing you what Jennifer had sent to him.
Correct.
And when you looked at it, you thought that boy needs help, is that correct?
Correct.
And when you saw that drawing and knew that there was something going on where mom was headed to the school, you didn't call police or anyone to make anyone aware about this drawing, is that correct?
I did not call, correct.
And at that point, when you were speaking to Jennifer, Jennifer didn't go over the details on the drawing with you.
No.
When you were on the phone and Andy and you had a conversation, were you aware that
Jennifer was concerned Ethan may be suicidal.
Yes.
Did you become concerned that he was suicidal?
I, too much was going on. I didn't really have time to think. I was trying to process what was going on. I did not know the whole story.
And you would agree with me that that day when you were dealing with Jennifer Crumbley, she was processing a lot too, and it was an unordinary day. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any comments on the nothing on nothing, any regret?
Briefly, Your Honor. Counsel just asked you about, you weren't surprised by the conversation you had with Jennifer with benefits and getting money out and pay stubs, and you responded that you weren't, correct?
Correct.
Okay, but were you surprised that just a couple hours after her son murdered children in a school, she's asking about her job?
Yes.
And she also asked you about pictures. Did anything strike you unusual when you actually cleaned out Jennifer's desk?
Unusual, slightly.
What was that?
Your
There.
Honor, may we approach, please?
What, if any, pictures, Kathy, did you find in Jennifer's desk, on the desk, in the desk?
In the desk drawer was a small photo frame of her husband in one of the desk drawers upside down. And the only other photos I saw and found was a small picture of her son on her bulletin board and a picture of a horse. I don't know if it was her horse or whatnot, but it was a picture.
All right, nothing further.
Okay, you may step down. Yes, can I call the attorney's? Okay, we're gonna take a break now. We're gonna take a lunch break right now and have everybody, will return at, 1 o'clock. Attorneys, you can leave everything in the courtroom if you want. I will be locking the courtroom, so just keep that in mind if you're trying, if you want access to anything